A 36-year-old man has been arrested in Edinburgh following a series of suspected attacks that targeted Muslim victims in Leith on Friday night. Social media footage appears to show a man with a bare chest holding a large weapon striking a pizzeria before being restrained by the police. Well, joining me now is Daniel Gilius, Regional Manager from MEND Scotland, that's Muslim Engagement and Development. Daniel, thank you for being with us. How is the Muslim community feeling this morning?
Thanks so much for having me on. It's I think the only way I can summarise what the Muslim community is feeling today is shock but not surprise. These attacks have come at a time of heightened tensions across the nation, and almost exactly 9 years since the Finsbury Park terror attack, which a Muslim lost his life. And it's deeply saddening, as many people in this community are deeply embedded and have been here for many generations. Many Muslims in Scotland and across the UK I strongly identify as British, proud to be part of the fabric of the communities that they live and work in. And this attack, which seeks to divide, seeks to spread terror and fear, has really definitely shaken the community to its core.
How much influence do you think the current political climate has had on what happened?
It's really difficult to quantify and to measure, but this attack came just a week after a far-right demonstration marched through the city centre of Glasgow and through Edinburgh. We've seen the violence spread across Northern Ireland as well. And it's really, I think we've got to a stage where communities are trying to engage in political discussions which are really important for the future of the nation, ultimately end up being silenced or being polarised. Some people feel incredibly scared and intimidated to even mention that an attack has taken place, whilst other people feel immensely confident, even though they may be ill-informed, but because of the echo chambers of social media, of the internet, people feel incredibly informed and they feel that it's their position to polarise communities, to try to divide communities at a time when really we should be coming together. The pressures that people feel up and down the country are felt by all communities, and the issues of today really need to be examined, really need to be spoken about in depth. But when we have these polarised debates, these issues become incredibly watered down, and it's really putting a lot of strain on minority communities, not just the Muslim community.
Mm-hmm. And give us a sense. I know that you've met with one of the family members. How are they all coping?
The family members who've been affected, they've been in Edinburgh for a long time. Two of the students had just recently arrived in the country, but some of the victims have family members all across Edinburgh. And the mosque where one of the attacks almost took place was a mosque I personally used to frequent when I was a student. And I think as I said, there's a real sense of shock and of confusion as to what's happened here. But anybody that's been following current affairs for the past few years knows that this attack was incredibly predictable. 5 years ago, we had the cross-party group report on Islamophobia at the Scottish Parliament, and the Scottish Government are yet to enforce any of the recommendations of that Islamophobia report. And so I imagine many of the victims and many of the family members feel frustrated because there's been so much work done to try to prevent this from happening. And I think they'll also be wondering where the Cobra meeting is. I think they'll be wondering where the helicopter are. I think they'll be wondering, why is it when this community gets attacked that we don't get the same attention, we don't seem to get the spotlight as much as other communities, and that is deeply disheartening for people who contribute to the society, regardless of their faith or race or religion, that they feel that their lives just don't mean as much as other people.
We spoke to the Justice Secretary and we put the point to him that, according to your organisation, around 80% of Muslims have experienced Islamophobia, but feel that nothing has been done. What would you like to see being done? And can you tell us a bit more about those figures? 80% is a huge proportion of the community.
It's massive, and this is 5 years ago, so I would say that report's now very much out of date. I think it's closer to 100% now, to be honest. And what we really need to see is legislative change. We have had so many smiley, happy photos in mosques, and we have had so many promises and shaking hands, and time again, we keep on saying the same message. We need legislative change. We don't need people to arrive at the mosque at election time. We don't need people to come and, take photos every time that these things happen. What we need is legislative change. For example, early intervention in schools. There's an organisation called Edinburgh Interfaith Association who have funding from the Scottish Government to deliver roadshows to schools and to parents, not just the children, to parents as well, to explain and to welcome them and to ask questions to people of all the diverse faith backgrounds of Scotland. And these kinds of programmes really need funding. These kinds of programmes to speak to young people, to help them to understand the truth, to help them to understand how echo chambers work and how social media companies work. This kind of work is really fundamental. The other aspect of the recommendations which were made by the cross-party group on Islamophobia 5 years ago was on the media training for journalists to help them to understand and to relate and to communicate with the Muslim community. Your colleagues from across different news organisations have done a really good job, I feel, this time round, and many people in the Muslim community are starting to feel, our voices are being heard for the first time. But it's devastating to think that this kind of attack needs to happen before Muslims in Scotland actually have a voice.
OK, well, Daniel, thank you very much for speaking to us. That's Daniel Gilius, Regional Manager from the Muslim Engagement and Development Organisation.